All right, guys. So this, you're going to get out the review sheet that we talked about yesterday. Please remember your test is tomorrow. So it is really important. Don't move on. Do one at a time. Try your best, and then we're going to go over it. So the first question is right here, problem number 1. And it says select all the expressions. There's going to be more than one that is equal to 6 times 10 to the 5th. So figure out which one of these is equal to that. And I'm going to be quiet, pause the video, and then as soon as you're done, you can play the video to see the answers. It should take give about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes might be okay. 4 minutes. All right, so now that you've unpaused the video, here's the answer. So B and D were the correct answers. Now, the reason why, so we talked about yesterday that the trick is that when you see something in scientific notation times something in scientific notation, you can do 3 times 2 and you get 6. But 10 to the 8th times 10 to the negative 2nd is 10 to the 6th. So this would get you 6 times 10 to the 6th, and you need it to equal 10 to the 5th, which, by the way, 6 times 10 to the 5th, I moved the decimal over 5 times, you'd get 600,000. This one, because it says times 10 to the negative 3rd, I move the decimal over 3 times backwards. And when you do that and you get rid of that, you actually end up with 600,000, which is why B is correct. Letter C, when you divide, you're not going to get 6. 10 to the 7th divided by 10 to the 2nd. We learned in class that you would subtract 7 minus 2. And yes, you would get 10 to the 5th, which matches there. But 1.2 divided by 2 does not get you 6. Therefore, that's not an answer. And last, we already kind of did this out, and this certainly matches up with this. So that's why D is also the answer. Those are the ones that are equivalent or equal to this. All right, number 2. Now, in a second, you're going to go ahead and pause the video. It says, again, select all the expressions that are equal to 7 to the 8th. So go ahead right now and do that. Now, hopefully you've unpaused the video. Your answers would have been A and E. Now, when you're multiplying powers of 7, you add the exponents, and negative 2 plus 10 is 8. So this is why this equals 7 to the 8th. The second one, power of a power, you don't add, you multiply, so that doesn't equal 7 to the 8th power. Here, I did 7 to the 3rd power. Power of a power is 12, 3 times 4. 7 to the negative 4th, and when you divide, you subtract. Well, 12 minus a negative 4, when you see 2 minuses in a row, that becomes 2 plus and plus. And that would be 12 plus 4, which gets you 7 to the 16th power, which certainly does not match up with 7 to the 8th. Here, power to a power, you get 7 to the negative 8th, which doesn't match up to 7 to the 8th, because negative. And last, when you divide, you subtract the 2 exponents, and 6 minus a negative 2 becomes 6 plus 2, which gets you 7 to the 8th power, which is why this also is equivalent to 7 to the 8th power. Okay? Now, go ahead and pause the video. Let's take about 5 minutes to do question number 3. And question number 3 looks just like this. Now, there's some on the back. There's some problems in the back. So it says right here. All right, go ahead, take 5 minutes. All right, so now you've unpaused the video. The correct answer is choice B. Here's the reason why. It says, how many do they live in all 3 countries altogether? So I had to find 3.2 times 10 to the 8th would be right here, because you move the decimal over 8 times, which means you're going to add 7 zeros. 3.9 times 10 to the 7th, you move it over 7 times, you get 6 zeros, 39 million. And then 1.1 times 10 to the 8th is right here. And when you add up all the millions, I lined up the zeros, and when you add them up, sorry, that's over here. When you add up all the numbers, you get 469, and then you get 6 zeros. And then you have to turn this into scientific notation, which means you move the decimal between the 4 and the 6, And then to how many times would you have to move it back? You'd have to move the decimal back 8 times, which is why it's 4.69 times 10 to the 8th. Now, go ahead and now, hold on. Before you go, I'm not quite sure what number 5 is asking. So you could go ahead. Sorry, not problem. Yeah, problem number 4. I'm not quite sure what this is asking. So you could go ahead and skip this one and go right on to problem number 5. All right. It tells you how many firefighters in the United States there were, and it gives you the average average salary for one, and it asks you how much did they make in their salary altogether. So we kind of did one of these in class. Go ahead and give about 4 minutes. Pause. All right. Here's what you should have done. First of all, I found out the number of firefighters is 3 with 5 zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's about 300,000 firefighters. And I multiplied by 45,000 because that's 1. And when you multiply these numbers, I just did 45 times 3 and then I added all the zeros. Another way you could have done, and by the way, the total amount of money would be hundreds, thousands, millions, $13 billion, 500 million. $13 billion, 500 million dollars. Another way you could have done this same problem is you could have kept this in scientific notation, and I could actually put this in scientific notation, 4.5 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we talked about a shortcut in class. All you have to do is multiply the 3 times 4.5. Trust me, you would get 13.5. And then 10 to the 5th times 10 to the 4th is 10 to the 9th. You just add the powers of 10. And then your final answer says express in scientific notation. So whether you have this or this, you do have to change it because neither of these are between 1 and 10. So I'd have to move the decimal right here between the 1 and the 3. And since I made this one smaller, I'm going to make this one bigger. Or you could have put the decimal between the 1 and the 3 over here and ask yourself to get back. I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times 10 to the 10th. Either way, you get the same answer. Okay. All right, now give some time to do problem number 6. Now, problem number 6, now here's the deal. It's on the back. It basically asks you to put in numbers into the boxes, but in each problem, there has to be at least one negative number. Okay, so go ahead and take about 5 minutes. All right, so in this particular problem, what I'm going to tell you is that there's many different right answers. Now, what I did is just testing your ability to know how to multiply powers of 5. So remember, when you're multiplying powers of 5, you have to add 2 things. So I did -1 times 5 to the 3rd. And then when you add those, you get 5 to the 2nd. Notice I used one negative number, and this is mathematically correct. Here, when you divide, you have to get 0. Now, what I did was I did -3 divided by -3. And when you subtract -3 minus a -3, you get -3 plus 3, which is 0. 5 to the 0 power. You could have done like 5 to the -4th divided by 5 to the -4th or anything like that. Anything that would have got you 5 to 0. The idea, though, is you subtract these. And last, a power to a power that gets you 5 to the -20. So I just needed 2 things that multiplied to -20. So I did -4 and 5. You could have done -10 and 2, 2 and -10. You could have done a lot of different things. You could have done -20 and 1. But remember, a power to power is when you multiply. Okay? Now, can you please do number 7? Hopefully you have paused the video, and let's go over the answer. All right. So what I did was, it says, how many more people live in San Jose than Atlanta? So that means you're going to take San Jose and subtract Atlanta. So Lynn says that 6.2 times 10 to the 5th more people live in San Jose than Atlanta. Let's go find out. So Atlanta is 4.8 times 10 to the fifth. That would be 480,000 people. I moved the decimal over 5 times. 1.1 times 10 to the sixth, I moved the decimal over 6 times, giving me 5 zeros, and that gets you 1,100,000. So how many more people live? I did this minus this. You had to borrow a little bit, but you get 62000. So that's 620,000 more people. Well, in order to get into scientific notation, I had to move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. So 6.2 times 10 to the fifth, which is exactly what Lynn said they were supposed to be. Okay. Now, for the last problem right down here, I do not need you to do this. What I would like you to do is I would like you to order the following problems from least to greatest. 3.2 times 10 to the sixth, 3 times 10 to the fifth, 2,900, 21 million, and 5.2 times 10 to the fourth. All right, so I want you to put these in order from least to greatest. And let's give about 3 minutes for this. Okay? So first of all, the smallest number is probably going to be this, because this is 2.9 times 10 to the 1, 2, third power. It's like, if you look at the powers of 10, it's the smallest power of 10. So the smallest number is 2,900. Now, 5.2 times 10 to the fourth is only going to have a 52 and 3 zeros, which is 52,000. So that would come next. Then comes 3 times 10 to the fifth. Then comes 3.2 times 10 to the sixth. And last, this is 2.1 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 21 million will be the biggest number. And that's the order from least to greatest. All right, hope that helps. Now, if you have time in class, I'm putting an EDIA assignment up. Please make sure that you go to edia.app and do it if we have time. And please study this. And we will talk tomorrow.